Okay everyone, welcome back. I'm doing zucchini super fritters. I'm just calling them super because I'm going to be mixing in some power greens and spinach and stuff. So things that are classified as superfoods. I know, girl. So that's what's going to make them super fritters. But everything in this will be WIC friendly with the exception of seasonings, and I'm going to use some Italian dressing as well. So those will be the only things that are not WIC friendly but are very budget friendly if you decide to make them yourself. And the seasonings obviously would be really free range on whatever you prefer, but I'm going to kind of lean into an Italian route. If you want, WIC does cover some dry and fresh herbs now, but just straight herbs. So things like thyme, basil, oregano, things that would be along the Italian lines anyway. So we're going to get started.
Yay, I did it too.
You did it too?
Yeah, me too.
Okay, so we're going to start with shredding the zucchini and squash.
Okay.
I have set up of just a kitchen towel, a colander, and then a bowl because we're going to shred it and then put it in here.
Okay.
So that we can squeeze the water out.
Okay, Mom.
Because if you've ever made fritters, you don't want too much moisture. And for that same reason, after we shred these, we're going to cook down the greens before adding them in so that we can pull that moisture out before they are cooking in the oven.
Okay, it's my time. Next time I get the greens out, just drizzle with the water with the bread and eat them.
Yeah. I only have this small little grater, but most people will usually have a box grater. If not, they're about $10. This, I want to say, was maybe from the dollar store even.
I'll have...
It works pretty good, but it's small.
Even the new puppy, the table.
And just for the record, this is going to be more of a winging it with what you got type of recipe. I don't have an exact recipe with amounts or anything. So it's going to be adding what you think you need to balance out the batter so that they're not too wet or too dry.
Okay, I try.
Yeah, okay?
Okay.
Okay.
I should cry.
Okay, so while I'm doing this, because this is taking a minute, I'm just going to cook down my greens. WIC will pay for any greens, even in the packages like this, as long as it's just greens and not a salad kit with like toppings or dressings. So this one is chard, spinach, and kale, and then I have more kale and more spinach to go in, but I just want to cook them down to get that moisture out, and then when they are done cooking, I'll add them to this to squeeze the water out of all of it at once. That way it's kind of a two birds one stone and not having to go back and repeat the same step for a different ingredient. Okay, so I'm just going to salt the shredded zucchini and squash a little bit to help pull that water out. And I'm gonna let it sit since I'm still cooking down my greens. And then I'm gonna prep the other part of this, which is gonna be like the breadcrumbs or the bread part. I'm going to be using corn checks, which WIC pays for. It also, if you prefer, would pay for rice checks, Cheerios, cornflakes, pretty much any whole grain cereal that's like plain like this. It's actually something I've done a lot as I've grown up cooking. My mom used to do cereal coated chicken, but she would save the crumbs from the bottom of the bag, and then she would save it up in a big jar until she had enough to do baked chicken with it. And I always remember it being really good. So I'm gonna dump out this bag I had the zucchinis in, and then I'm going to put it in there and crush it up, and that'll be my breadcrumbs element in this. That's also where I'm gonna put my seasoning. So I'm gonna do that and crush it up, and if I have any extra, that's totally okay. I'll just use it for breadcrumb chicken or cereal crumb chicken or something like that in the future, but it'll get used for sure, even if not all for this recipe. But I'll probably do about half of this box, half of the 12-ounce box. Okay, so this is about half the bag of the corn checks, minus what my toddler just came and stole. And I'm going to add Italian style seasoning, some black pepper, and then paprika. These ones are from Sam's Club, and they're like $8 to $9 a piece, which isn't the most budget friendly, but a Sam's Club membership does definitely pay off. But of course you can always buy the small seasoning jars like at Walmart or Kroger, which usually are about $1 a piece. So you can kind of season it how you'd like. This is kind of what I'm using to go an Italian route, and then I'll be using the rest of this Italian dressing, which had been on sale, so you don't have to use Kraft. You can always use like the store brand, which again, a whole bottle of dressing would be $1, maybe $2. So that kind of saves you a little bit of money on putting a whole amount of seasoning in. Or you can use a different kind of dressing or a barbecue sauce, or you know, whatever you're feeling for the flavor profile of this, because zucchini is very versatile and it adheres to flavors very well. So I'm gonna add these into my cereal and then crush it all up. So I'm just gonna do this by hand, but you can also definitely use like a rolling pin if you want to hit at it. You can put it in a food processor, whatever works for you. I'm just doing it this way because I already had the bag from the zucchinis, and just trying to make it as accessible as possible, because it took me a long time to accumulate kitchen tools because they're not always the cheapest, but once you have them, they definitely do last. But a lot of the times I do still do it old school, or I don't know, the manual labor way, just because it's simpler at the time. Or like right now I'm wearing the baby, so I don't want to run the food processor. But you can definitely approach it however you want to. Alright, so after the greens were cooked and cooled down a little bit, I added them to the squash and zucchini that was shredded, and then I just folded up those sides of the towel and gave it a few good squeezes, probably a lot of good squeezes, and then you mush it around and squeeze it some more. And after you're done squeezing, you have the option to save the liquid because it's definitely good. We saved it for soup, and then I rinsed out the bowl and then dumped the zucchini and squash back into the bowl. After I dumped it back into the bowl, I just broke it up a little bit with my spoon, and then I added the Italian dressing first. And then I added 2 eggs, which are also covered by WIC. once I mixed those together, I started adding my breadcrumbs or my Chex crumbs with seasoning in it. I started off using half of what I had originally, and then I ended up using the whole thing, as you'll see. But I also added about a half a cup of shredded sharp cheddar cheese, which is covered by WIC. You can get blocks or shredded cheese. They just have to be a standalone cheese and not a blend like how there's Fiesta blend or Taco blend. It just has to be a solitary type of cheese. And in that app that they have now, you can scan barcodes to check as well. So I mixed it up a fair amount, and then I realized it still looked a little bit wet, and then I went ahead and added the rest of that Chex crumbs, which ended up being about half of the box of Chex. So I made sure to mix everything thoroughly, then I smoothed it out on top and wrapped it in saran wrap. And then I ended up letting it chill overnight, mostly because I had to move on to making dinner. Totally not necessary to do overnight, but I would recommend at least for an hour or two, just so your seasoning can kind of soak in and your breadcrumbs can get hydrated and kind of bring that mix together. And that's kind of the beauty of something like this, is you can kind of put it in the fridge and come back to it when you're ready. I preheated my oven at 375. I got 2 cookie sheets with parchment paper, and then I used a 2-ounce drop scoop to portion them. You can always make them bigger or smaller based on your preference, and you also have the option to pan fry these as well. I just didn't want to do the whole hot oil operation because I was still on baby duty, so it kind of had to be something I could walk away from. And then once I scooped them out, I pressed them all into patties, and I made sure to give them each a little bit of space, even though I know they're not going to spread. And then I put them in the oven side by side for 25 minutes at first, and then I flipped them all over and did another 5 to 7 minutes. You can break up this time if you want, especially if your oven is uneven. You can kind of flip them around and change positions just so that they all get the same level of cooking. After that, I just let them cool completely and stored them in a glass Tupperware in the fridge. You could also freeze them by wrapping them individually in saran wrap. Stuff like this is such a great veggie option to have, easy to make, and was entirely WIC friendly minus the seasonings. So I hope you enjoy and make your own variations. Thank you for watching.